Can I get a peel his muffin cap back blue? Say it with your chest! Can I get a peel his muffin cap? I didn't know what to do. I was confused.
I don't know who this is for, but you need to start saying it with your chest. Out loud and proud. I don't care how many feathers you ruffle. Get comfortable with that tension because it is in alignment with you. You are naturally someone who has truth to speak. You're naturally straightforward and a leader. You don't necessarily care for the niceties. You care about transforming people's lives, but you understand that sometimes people are triggered even when you don't even say nothing, and that can be uncomfortable by itself. And so imagine if you really spoke up for real, how many people would, man, oh man. And so I understand that can be scary, especially when you don't really want to cause tension in your relationships or with other people. But if your mission here is to change people's lives and to transform them, you got to understand that they are slow to listen. I'm trying to decide how I want to say this. I'm just going to leave it at this. Your natural frequency, vibration, the way you speak is more straightforward. It's less about the niceties. It's less about the, oh, hi, everybody, and the encouragement. You have a strong fire underneath you that you've been tricked out of speaking, of doing. Because growing up, a lot of times we have heard that disagreement means disrespect. And of course, I know you don't ever want to come off disrespectful. You always want to come from a balanced perspective. You never want to intentionally make people feel bad or ruffle their feathers. So you've been trained to speak in niceties, speak flowery, sugarcoat things in a way that people won't feel some type of way when you speak. But here's the news flash, baby. You are triggering people when you don't even speak. So you might as well go ahead and say it with your chest and say what you want to say the way you want to say it. And say it straightforward and not be so concerned about how hurt people's feelings are. That saying about hit dogs hollering, that's none of your business. I want you to just be true and honest and authentic in your voice because you have to. That's the way to bring in the things that are in alignment for you. And you're thinking that kindness is what brings in alignment, and you can still be kind. There's a difference between lying and omitting conversation and, not really speaking the truth. You can still be quote unquote kind and still be firm. You know what I mean? Those are not separate things. But when you're kind and you're lying and you're not really saying what you need to say, or you're not speaking up when something's wrong, it doesn't matter how kind you are. You're not making any change in anybody's lives. So you're going to feel empty and nothing's going to change anyway. You're having no impact. So I think it's better. No, I know it's better for us to step into that more direct, clear, non-sugarcoated energy. Okay, 3 minutes in. And I'm going to do my intro. Welcome back. This is day number 5 of 31 days of insight and divine guidance. And so this is really coming off of the full moon energy that was yesterday on the 4th. And when I tell you, I've noticed the communication several times between myself and other people. And let's not get started on traffic. That has nothing to do with anything, but I do want to mention traffic was a hot mess yesterday for the full moon. But this is a full moon in Gemini, and Gemini rules communication. And so it got me thinking I communicate. I've been learning how to just speak my mind. But then I'm realizing okay, I'm speaking, but I'm not really saying anything that's causing any sort of tension. And I'm not saying I'm trying to do that on purpose, or I would want to cause tension on purpose. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're always just kind of saying things that are kind of lukewarm or everybody's going to agree on, are you truly being authentic? Is that truly your true perspective? Or are you just kind of saying things that everybody will get along with and you don't want to ruffle any feathers? So it's just a type of communication that I saw a change in for me yesterday and really triggered this oh my gosh, this insight, right? So for example, there was a work meeting and there had been a decision that had been made upon, and it was brought up hey, 2 people disagreed about it. And I was sitting there in my chest, like literally in my chest, I was like, I don't like this idea. This idea is not the best idea. And at first they were like, well, if it's only them two and not me, I haven't spoken up yet. They were like, if it's just those two and y'all are in the minority, we'll just kind of figure it out. Like, and a lot of people were either against it or like against it for now. They kind of need to see it. And they were like, okay, we'll do a vote. And I kind of put in my vote, but that was through like chat. And I was like, against for now. But it just kind of seemed like if nobody else spoke up, then they were just going to ignore it. And so I had the urge to speak up. And it was almost making me sweat because I'm not used to being in that position. But I felt so much better afterwards because I know I was speaking what most people were thinking, but were kind of not willing to say. And I'm not sure how harsh I came across now that I think about it afterwards, but I know I surely wasn't kikiing and ha-haing. I was like, you know what, there's a better way. I feel like we can execute this. Here's my idea. It may or may not work, but I think at least giving us the option to consider something else other than that, because it sounds like X, Y, Z. And so I know I was very straightforward with it. I'm not sure how other people took it. People can always say, yeah, we appreciate your feedback, but do they really? Hey, at this point, that really doesn't matter. It was about me standing for the truth or my truth, or at least getting my truth out there, no matter what the outcome is going to be. So I seen it there for sure. And I feel really empowered with that. And because I'm someone who's usually quiet. I'm usually a wallflower. I will go with the flow. And even if it's something that I don't quite agree with, I'll just kind of let it slide and let it rock and just see what happens. But there comes a point where there's something that's just so off kilter that you have to speak up. And I don't really want us to get to a space where we're waiting for that dire moment to speak up in a situation. If you're given the opportunity to speak, even if you're not, find a way to become more comfortable with speaking out against something that you find to not be fair, to not be for the best of the whole people, you know what I mean? And so I feel like I'm talking to someone who is like a humanitarian, who wants to bring justice in, who wants to give a perspective that a lot of people aren't thinking about. And if that sounds like you and you're still talking and communicating in a way that's lukewarm so everybody can be like, oh yeah, you're right, and maybe this, maybe that, a change is not going to be made in anybody's life because you're not pulling in the people who need to hear it. Even if people are getting pulled in and they disagree with you, the fact that they heard you in the first place is a good sign, because that means like you're creating enough magnetism and enough tension to spark people's emotions. And I know that's kind of like, I feel like I'm speaking fast. Not going to apologize for it because that's the mood I'm in right now. You know how they say on social media that you have to be kind of triggering, you have to spark emotion, and that kind of turns toxic when people are intentionally saying things like, are you rage baiting me? You know what I mean? I'm not saying do that, especially if it's not true to you. But if you do have an opinion that falls outside the norm and you feel like you need to talk about it because it's important to you, I say it. Say the weird thing. Have y'all heard that on TikTok? Say the weird thing, say the out of the box thing, say the thing that goes against the grain. And if people don't like it, oh well, because you're going to become more confident in your truth. You're going to become more magnetic in yourself and draw into things that are for you. And you're going to repel people who are not for you. So let's say you have been in an environment where you have been sugarcoating everything, and you have these people around you who are, they love what you say, they love who you are, but you haven't really been giving them the real raw truth of what you think. And so suddenly you turn that on, and then they have a problem with you. Guess what? They weren't here for the real you anyway, so they can be dismissed. They can go. You shouldn't want to hold on to people who are not here for the real you, for the real way you speak. And I'm not saying that you have a hall pass to be rude, to be ignorant, to be arrogant. I'm not saying that. But I know that's not in your nature anyway. And if you find yourself ending up saying things that you didn't really mean or whatnot, okay, then that is a practice that we need to work on. If I'm coming off and you feel like I'm being rude, we can address that. And I can say, did I come off a little too harsh? Did I really mean to say it like that? That's a part of the thing. That's a part of all this. But I'm just saying right now, we need to get comfortable with speaking out, saying it with our chest, and not trying to avoid conflict. And this whole, oh, I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers, that's fine and dandy. But if there's something you really want to say and there's really a strong opinion that you're being guided to say and talk about, ruffling the feathers is the least of your worries, especially when you're here to create transformation in people's lives. Some people, you know how some people don't take when you tell them nicely, like gentle parenting, and you're telling them, oh, you know, it'd probably be best if you did this. Oh, I don't, you know, maybe this, maybe that. And you think they're going to take heed to your advice. Like, you would take heed to that advice. You don't need to be told harshly more than once what to do or, you know, a different way to think. But a lot of people do. A lot of people need to be like rudely awakened. And I don't want to say rudely, but a lot of people need like somebody who is going to just all facts. What was I going to say? No chaser, whatever. It don't matter. Sometimes people won't get the memo unless it's like blaringly in their face, straightforward, no cookie cutter, no sugarcoating. And sometimes you got to come in like that, especially if you're talking to people who are a little bit stubborn. I feel like I know plenty of people who are like that, and I'm like, you know what? Let me start knucking and bucking, because it seems like you're not listening to anything I say or my opinions. I'm not saying that we're telling people what to do, but if you have a strong conviction on something and you feel like something is not fair, some people need to hear it super to the point. Like, I'm not laughing, I'm not smiling. Try it. Of course, like I said, you don't have to cross the boundaries into being rude, disrespectful, distasteful. But you have to find that balance to where you're not feeling guilty or shameful after the fact. Okay? And please know you still trigger people regardless. So it's really a wrap anyway. Even when you do say it nice, people are still gonna be like, oh, I feel so triggered by her. Like, she shouldn't have said that to me, blah, blah, blah. Oh, well. Let me see what else I have written down. I'm gonna wrap this one up. I say you're somebody who thinks against the norm and challenges people's normal. And that makes people uncomfortable. Like I said, I know I'm talking to people who are naturally not thinking in alignment with society's thinking. Like, everything that's trending, you're opposite. Everything that people say, like, oh, yeah. Let's say if 90 people agree, you're in the 10% who don't agree. And understand that voice is needed. And that voice is needed to sound as strongly and as confidently as the people who are yapping and saying I'm not saying things are right and wrong, but if there's a majority of people who are very loud and very confident going in one direction, I need you to be just as loud and confident going in the opposite direction. And maybe even louder, since you're in the minority. We're in the minority, right? So the same amount of audacity and conviction that the people in the majority have who are at the top, well, I don't want to say it like that, but who are like, oh, they're going to say whatever they want to say regardless, that same energy needs to come through you, and it's going to come through me. I'm going to start trying anyway. And I'm just thinking, like, you know what? Sometimes I do need to hear it just like that, straight to the point. No, majority of the time I don't, but like for me to actually make a change, oh yeah, no, I need to hear it like this. So I think you do too. I know you do too. Did that come out right? Okay. So maybe you have been talking. Maybe you have been communicating. Maybe you have learned to just speak your voice. Maybe that's where you are. And you have been consistent in your communication. Let's bring it back to the fact that we're talking about this full moon energy in Gemini and how you're kind of at your final phase, perhaps, where you've been learning how to communicate. You've been learning how to share. Right? You've been consistent in sharing, because that could have been an obstacle. But now you might be being tasked to share things that are uncomfortable to share, that are not as accepted to share. An opinion that might ruffle some feathers, might go against the grain. Your opinion is not similar to most people's opinions. Now, are we okay? Are we comfortable? Can we become comfortable in stepping into that? Almost being like bad cop. Even though you know you're not a bad cop, but people will take it that way because people aren't really used to hearing the opposite of what the majority says. And they're not used to hearing it in the tone in which you're being guided to say it, or, you know, in that tone, you know what I mean? Just that fiery tone, that fire and that passion. Come with that. At least try. And if it's not about the tone, it's about making sure that you are okay with speaking on things that are uncomfortable for you, even though you know you have something to say. Hopefully I'm not talking in circles now, because I keep trying to give more and more examples. You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. So at the end of the day, it's about either or both speaking up on things that you want to talk about but you've been scared to talk about, or the things you have been talking about, make sure your tone is authentically you, and that if you are more about being straightforward, you don't really have too many niceties, I'm not saying you're cold-hearted, but if that's your natural self and you're not really you don't really want to sugarcoat it, then you need to nip the sugarcoating in the bud. Stop trying to people please. Stop trying to avoid these conflicts and start saying it with your chest. Say it with your chest. You know what you know what you believe. So say the things. And watch the right people come to you, and watch the wrong people get away from you. You don't want the wrong people anyway. So I'm wrapping up right there. I just saw 1555 on my oh, you know what I gotta do. You know what I gotta do. Because I also saw 555 on my thing before I got started, on my clock, on my phone. So we're gonna look up 1555 as an angel number. All right, I'm gonna read these two paragraphs. So it says angel number 1555 or 1555 encourages you to take charge of your own life. Do things your own way and make positive life changes that will benefit yourself and others. Although you may fear the unknown, your angels ask you to trust that these changes will be your long-term advantage. Stay positive and optimistic about these impending changes, and you will find that all will go smoothly. Angel number 1555 suggests that the timing is right to begin a new venture or project and or take a new direction in your life. A happy outcome and result follows your positive expectations. The image you hold in your mind's eye is like a blueprint, and your attention is the magnet that attracts the creative energies to fulfill it. Okay? So, if that resonated with you, let me know. And I'm trying to read some other things, but I think we are good. Well, it says number 1 tells us that we create our realities. Number 5 relates to major life changes, spontaneity, and making important life choices and decisions, personal freedom, and individualism. So, hold on. You said number 5 relates to major life changes, spontaneity, making important life choices and decisions, personal freedom, and individualism, sociability, and that's not a word, y'all. Companionability, courage and being courageous, imagination, curiosity, adventure, and life lessons learned through experience. So, anyways, I'm gonna leave that right there. I ain't trying to let this drag on too long. Say it with your chest, y'all. Say it with your chest. How are you communicating? You're doing a great job communicating, but now how are you doing so? Are you doing so in full alignment with who you naturally are? Or are you sugarcoating and trying to be too nice and trying to keep the peace? No. Okay? Well, that's just something to ask yourself. I know I'm going to work on it. So I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.